You're listening to Fresh from the Scene with your host, Ruby Price.
Welcome to Fresh from the Scene. Today's guest is the enigmatic Will Yates from the Will Yates Experience.
Hello, Ruby Price.
Hello, how are you doing?
I am very good, thank you. You've made me a cup of coffee, and it's a nice day. And this is the first interview I've done in a long time, so I'm quite excited.
Yeah, I'm very excited. You know, anyone who's listened to the show will be very familiar with your voice. You are the voice of Fresh from the Scene, in a sense. Made the theme tune and been technically on every episode.
Technically, to an extent, yeah. I was thinking, I'm glad that you haven't changed it, because part of my joke was to slag off the music at the beginning, be like, oh, who was that just playing now? It was awful. But no, it's going to be fun.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. The way that I like to start these is, of course, you know, for anyone who doesn't know, who is Will Yates? Sell yourself in a sense.
Okay. Do you want the person or the musician?
Let's start with the musician.
The musician. Well, I am trying to be a musician. I think I'm succeeding at the moment, which is very fun. I started out playing saxophone in high school, in primary school even. I've just really honed in on the weirder things. So at university, I needed more musicians to help me. And at first that came through in me just learning other instruments because I couldn't find a bassist, so I tried picking up bass and I thought I'd prick about on guitar for a little bit. And then I learnt a bit of guitar and then piano came, and quite recently, the past 2 years or so, I had a bunch of songs as a byproduct of writing some other songs, but we might be able to get into that later. And some very, very lovely friends of mine who are also very talented musicians have helped me to make a band. And that is who Will Yates is in that context.
Yeah, so if anyone was thinking of coming to see the Will Yates Experience live or wanted to check out the Will Yates Experience on like some form of streaming platforms or like, how do you describe the sound of the Will Yates Experience?
You know, I don't know. It's really quite tricky because I have just thought of them as my songs, but with help of bandmates, you know, Ben White, Emily Lowndes, Sam Pursglove, and Jonathan Milsom, it's taken on something different, and I'm really enjoying every gig we do. Someone keeps giving me, oh, you sound like these guys, and I absolutely don't see it, but I'm also really welcome to hearing what people think we sound like. The most recent gig we did, someone's like, do you know Captain Beefheart? I'm like, I don't really know. It's like, you sound just like Captain Beefheart, the second coming of Captain Beefheart. So I've been trying to listen to Captain Beefheart to see if we do sound like them. I don't just see it yet because they've taken off the seminal album. I think he did an album called Trout Mask Replica, which is meant to be very, very strange and weird. But they've taken that off Spotify. So I listened to like an hour's worth of Captain Beefheart only to hear like the pre-weird stuff when it was just like a blues rock band. And I was like, I don't see it. Maybe I've just got long hair and a mustache. I think I like to call it pop music, but I don't think that's a very good description.
Yeah.
I don't know, how if you were to tell the listeners, what would you describe it as? Because it changes a lot.
Yeah, I mean, from the experience of Will Yates Experience I've had, like, I can see a justification for it being pop music because, you know, like, there's, you know, undertones of ABBA in there, you know, and there's somewhere. Like, maybe that's just the live performance. A bit Elton John-esque, and all of these artists were considered pop, you know, at the time and things like that. I saw a lip wobble then.
I'm just thinking, like, I was gonna put my hand on my chest and be like, oh, thank you, but then I've just slapped the lapel mic, so I'm not gonna do that. So I'm gonna slap thank you. That's very kind of you.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
A sort of weird vibe, and I feel like, you know, when people are trying to put you into a genre these days, like, it's good for, you know, like streaming and SEO and all of that stuff, because that's what, you know, that's how the entire industry discovery is kind of based around these days. It used to be go to a show, who's the support bands and stuff like that, who's on the radio. Now it's kind of like you listen to this band, oh, this band is also in this genre that we've assigned.
Yeah, in the
so
Venn
it's going to
diagram.
get recommended to you and stuff like that. Got your lineup, but like, you know, how does everyone sort of like come together? Like, what is it? Is it all just kind of like stemming from Will Yates, or is it like, you know, do you all sort of work together when it comes to like songcraft and performances and like thinking about like how to do things differently?
Well, I'll tell you a story if you want.
Give me a story.
I don't know if you remember this, but a long time ago I tried to make a band, a rock band, a hard rock band called the Jet Age. And that was my little baby project. And I'd written one EP and I thought to myself, oh, I need to do something as follow-up. And I had a bunch of songs that I'd written. But in the process of writing those hard rock songs, really serious, really gruff and I got writer's block quite often. And in order to work out the writer's block, I wrote whatever came to me. And that was in the form of these really silly and whimsical pop songs to me. And after a while, I realized I'd written more of the lighter-hearted songs than I had the really, machismo kind of grungy stuff. And so you will know our friend Charlie Hulichuk, who is a southern musician down south in Brighton, who does a lot more, I guess, like classically...
Acoustically folky
yeah,
stuff. Yeah.
Stuff that I wouldn't normally... It's not my wheelhouse, so I sent him those songs that, like, I'd written about 20 of them. And I was like, I don't know what to do with these. What do you think I should do? And he said to me, these are really good songs. I think you should keep them. I think you should make a band with them. And so I went to my housemate, Ben White, and I said, Ben White, what should I do with these? And he said, yeah, we could do that. I'll do guitar, and you can do sax, and we'll need to find a drummer. So I messaged Sam Pursglove, who I'm also in a different band with, and he's just a phenomenal drummer. And he's in a lot of bands, and somehow he still said yes, which was great. And Emily Lowndes was an obvious choice because we needed a bassist, and she just started learning a bit of bass, I think because I wanted to get the jet age going, and I said, would you be able to play bass on this? She's like, yeah, we'll see. And so she'd started learning bass, but it made way more sense for her to be in this band. And then Ben said, well, it's absolutely mandatory that we need to get Johnny Milsom involved in some way, shape or form, because he's a little bit elusive, but he's a great time every time. And so I heard him play keyboard one time in a train station, and I was like, that's it, he's the keys guy. It's recently we did a gig without Emily, and Johnny was like, can I play bass? And I'm like, yeah, sure, if you want. He's like, a bass is actually my instrument. And I'm like, oh, you don't play keys? He's like, I don't normally play keys, no. It's only in this one band. And so that's how we came together, is just through having musical friends who are very fun to work with. But for the most part, the songs they're all mine in the sense that I wrote them, but they're not all mine in the sense as to how they've changed. So the band has helped me take those songs from my computer to a live audience, and changing structures and changing instrumentation, because there was a long time that I was overprotective of the songs because I'd spent a while writing them, and I was like, these are like my babies almost, and I don't want anything to change because to me they're perfect. And then they had to sit me down to be like, there is no such thing as perfect. Like, well, we can't have what's in the computer on live. Let's try and make it work. And then after a longer time than it probably should have taken, I was like, no, yeah, let's do that. It's a great idea. And this is where we're at now.
But leading on from that, then obviously you've released 4 songs.
We have.
As Will Yates Experience. Keep Silly, Leave My Job, Clueless, and Are You Limber Kalimba. 4 very, I feel like, different songs.
Yeah.
And like, I'm guessing, obviously, if there's at least 20 out there somewhere, even if that's just your brain, was it sort of like deliberate to have them be different vibes? You were saying that you were trying to, Will Yates Experience came out because of writer's block. Like, is it just kind of like, I'm just going to throw it at the wall and see what sticks, and then, because it's coming from you, it's like, yeah, it doesn't matter because it's going to be the Will Yates Experience vibe?
I think that's in a nutshell. At least that's how I like to think about it. Because one of the difficulties originally was how, like you say, they're quite different songs, and there's a lot of songs that we have that are maybe polar opposites. Because Leave My Job, I like to think, is very inspired by like Bowie and like 70s sort of singer-songwriter, whereas Limber Kalimba's maybe like more metronomy and more electronica sort of inspired. But I am kind of hoping that because I wrote them, they're similar enough to be listenable in the same 30 minutes. But that is the reason as to why there's more variety that we have out there at the moment, is because it would be a bit amiss to have one song and then someone comes to see us and it's like, well, this is nothing like that at all. Whereas at least now they're like, well, there's a lot of stuff going on here, so at least if I don't like this one, I might like the next one, and so on and so forth.
Yeah, having that through line as well, that sort of like links them together and, puts them in that scenario where you can listen to them in a 30-minute slot and not be like, I'm all over the place here. And there are so many bands out there that have got such a vast, like, sound. Like, I've recently got very into the band 100 Gex.
Oh, I've heard of them. Not well enough to join in, but I've heard of them, yes.
Yeah, the album that I had recommended to me, 10,000 Gex, because all of their albums are something Gex. Like, started off, it starts off with the THX, like, sound.
Excellent.
But then it goes into, like, a hard rock, like, riff. And then, like, halfway down the album, it's ska. and like there's rapping, there's like the sort of like SoundCloud style raps in a sense and stuff, and like it's just a crazy experience that like I nearly spat out my coffee on the train to work listening to it. You know, there's so many bands out there now that like just have a sort of cacophony of sounds on one piece that it's kind of like now so many younger people don't care about genre. You know, like we're getting to a point where it's almost dead from a perspective of like I just want to make music.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what's going on here.
I guess you're right, because you've got musicians like Beyonce who's decided I'm going to do country now, or Lana Del Rey's doing the same, I think. Or, I forget the artist, but there was some emo artist who just did the same album again, but all in ska, and it was a great idea. That Gex album, is that the one where they've got their shirts up over their head and they've got the... I know the one you mean, I'm going to have to listen to that. But yeah, I don't know if... I think it's harder these days to market yourself than possibly it ever has been, because there is so much genre. I found a new genre the other day. Have you ever heard of goth country before?
No.
No, me neither, until I was looking up the Wikipedia for that Mitski song, Mine All Mine. And I don't know if that's the best description. I think there is a worry about pigeonholing with genres. And I really want to avoid that as much as possible, because we're all changing as people. Like my tastes and your tastes are probably quite different to what they were 10 years ago. We might still have our favourites from back then, but like we're more open to different ideas. I certainly wouldn't want to be forced to write something that I'm not feeling because it's what's the most successful thing to do. So by setting the foundation to be as bloody wide as possible now, it should hopefully make it a lot easier to not have to do that down the line.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, I think as long as you keep it silly, you know, you'll be fine. There we go. That's the fun.
That was a good pun.
But, you know, we'll talk about Leave My Job. Obviously, it's got a fantastic music video. For anyone listening, go and check it out. There'll be a link in the description. But, you know, it's all very cool and very DIY, but, like, you know, it matches the vibe.
Yeah.
But tell me about, like, how that idea came around.
It was 2018, Ruby. It was a bad day at work, and I had an hour to myself at lunch. And as I was telling you before we started this interview, I currently live very close to my job. I'm very, very lucky that I get out of bed at 20 to 9 and I'm dressing at my desk for 9. So when I had an hour for lunch, I'd go home and I'd just chill out on my phone in privacy for a little bit. But this day, I was having a real bad day at work, and I came home and I started writing a song about how I was going to quit, because it was either that or I was going to really quit and then I'd be in financial difficulty. So it was easier to open up Logic instead. I was really into, well, I don't think I've never not been into David Bowie, but I was listening to the Ziggy Stardust album at the time, so I knew I wanted some sort of like cocked wah guitar for the solo, and I knew I wanted to sound a bit like Soul Love a little bit. And I then sat on it for a few years until we got the band together. And that's mainly the story, I think. It's a fun, quick song.
Yeah. It just came around.
It just came around, yeah. It took me half an hour to write and then 4 years to release.
Yeah. I know that feeling very well. Like I've got so many ideas that are just kind of like sat in Logic projects
tell me about
just, you know, I can't do anything with.
Yeah.
I don't know what to do with it now.
That's the hard bit, is finishing the song.
Yeah,
Whereas,
I can start it.
Oh, I love starting songs. It's my favourite thing. I hate finishing them. It's my least favourite. Because you have to give up on it. You have to... Well, it's not giving up. It's just deciding you're finished. But that's where the perfectionism kind of gets in my way, because I'm like, well, it does feel like giving up, and it's not. It's just... Songs can still change after you've released them as well, which is a new concept to me, even though it's not a new concept at all to everyone else. But yeah, that's a difficulty. My Logic folder, or just projects folder, is disgustingly large compared to how many songs are actually out there.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's a brag. I think that's more just I need to get more work done.
Yeah, I mean, like, kind of what we were saying, well, what you were just saying, like, songs aren't finished when they're being published, you know, like, taking it into a live setting, you've got to consider so many other things.
Yeah.
You've obviously mentioned that, like, you know, there's so much stuff on the computer that can't be done live.
Yes.
So, you know, you've played some live shows, you've supported, you know, some great bands, headlined the Parish Dive Bar, and you probably know where I'm going with this, but there was some choreography, a surprise flash mob. I know that you were clueless about it, but tell me about how that actually happened.
I'll set the scene, shall I?
Set the scene.
So I was, it'll be fresh from, I was doing a gig And we have this one song called Clueless, and Ben and Emily are very good at helping me organise just everything. And so Emily as the bassist, noticed in this one song, we don't have bass. It's a synth bass, so Johnny plays that. And so the need for Emily was, she has this one song where she sits out. And so from them, she's just been getting up to shenanigans during that song. And so it started off, I can't remember how it started off. I think it was just trying to make it as wild as possible while she had like 4 minutes to kill. So it started off with her like doing Hangman with an easel and paint, or making cups of tea for the audience, or playing Jenga, and then
making a cheese sandwich.
I don't know where I don't know where they keep coming up with all these ideas, but there was there was a gig that we did at Parish, and I remember I've got wise to some of the antics now. I know something's going to happen. So there was like a board of MDF wood next to like the stairwell, and I was leaving the house, and I was like, I don't know how, but I feel like this is part of it. And so we got to Clueless in the set, started singing, and I noticed that at the corner of my eye, because I'm looking down playing the keys next to Johnny, I see that everyone's sort of moving in unison, and by the time I look up, everyone's dancing. It was so strange. It was so strange. Have you ever had people dance to your own songs, but all in a uniform fashion with perfect synchronization? It really threw me off, and it's the first time that we've been playing Clueless that I had to stop to be like, what is going on? It's brilliant. So what Ben and Emily had done, is they'd messaged everyone who has put themselves as attending a video with them saying, hello, so we're going to surprise Will. Here's a dance that we're going to do for Clueless. And then sent them a tutorial as to how to do this dance. And I just had no clue. I was clueless.
You were clueless.
I was so clueless. It's even better because when I got home, I was like, what was the wood for? They were like, oh, we're just chucking that out. It was just a red herring that they didn't even realise had left for me. But yeah, no, it was brilliant. We did a gig recently with a band called Oh My God, It's the Church, who were fantastic. And Emily and Ben came out with a dog collar and a nun's habit, and they had communion wafers, which were party rings, and they had communion wine, which was a polystyrene cup with red stripe in it. And they'd given everyone hymn books that said Hymns for the Clueless, and it had the lyrics in and the sheet music, so you could sing along if you wanted to. I just don't know how they keep coming up with ideas like this, because I have not had a single contribution to this gag rather, and I keep thinking they can't. I'll not be surprised, but I keep getting surprised, and it's very wonderful.
Yeah. I mean, as well, like, I imagine, like, obviously you're playing live shows, so it's already kind of special in the first place, but what it kind of does is just add that sort of wild card to it that just allows you to be like, that was so, like, you went to this show and this happened, and it's like, you'll always remember things like that.
Yeah, I mean, with the last one as well, before even the nun's habit and the dog collar, I got a tap on my shoulder as soon as I was about to start the song, and Ben had a cornet, like a brass instrument. I was like, what's going on? She was like, don't worry about it, just keep going. And as soon as we started, he put the cornet away, didn't even play it. He just brought it all the way to the gig, got a mic set up, and didn't use it. Just to spook me out. And I was like, what's going on? I don't know anymore. It's great. It's also, from a marketing point of view, really good, because I do not know what's going to happen at the next gig, or the last gig, and people will be like, did you go to the gig where you got the cheese sandwich? Oh no, I went to the one where Emily, oh gosh, what else she's done? Painted Hangman or something like that. I've said these ones. I can't think of another one because there's been so many I'm starting to forget, which is a shame. But it's wonderfully weird. I think Ben also told me, we were having a party once, and he was saying how, as much as the band's called the Will Yates Experience, part of it is just me experiencing the band and not knowing what's going to happen and just being confused behind the microphone.
It's not the Will Yates Experience, it's the experience of Will Yates.
Exactly. It's me experiencing instead of you experiencing me. It's fun. It's really fun. I'm very, very, very happy with where I am right now.
We've kind of alluded to this a little bit, but like, tell me about your influences. Like, you said you started playing saxophone in primary school. Like, obviously when people think about people being inspired to take up instruments and join bands, people think about guitar and stuff like that.
Yeah.
What inspired saxophone?
I tell people it's Jerry Rafferty's Baker Street, and I guess it is, but it was that one episode of The Simpsons where Lisa got a saxophone.
Oh, yeah.
Because I think that's also Baker Street. I just thought they were cool, and I was lucky to have parents that were like, we can probably afford a cheap one. And I had lessons and kept it going because I didn't know any better, and then as a result, not too many people play saxophone at university. So it's just been really useful for every time if someone needs session musicians, they can ask for me or the other two people in the university that would be up for doing that. But I guess as I got more into rock music, I had like a guitar I bought from the farmer's market in Penrith that I could try and play on. But I guess, I don't know, I've just known it for so long that saxophone is kind of my thing. I'm not very good compared to the other saxophone players I know, but I'm good enough to fool people. In terms of influence though, I spent a lot of time being driven about living in the countryside growing up, just to school or to town or something. So we had a lot of CDs and cassettes, and my dad was a big advocate of mixtapes, and so a lot of the music I listened to growing up was my dad's music. He had a CD called Special Mix, which he got like a printed graphic on, and it was incredibly 90s looking, but that had like, I don't know, 20, 25 songs that he thought were cool. But that opened my musical mind up to likes of Carole King and David Bowie and Paul McCartney with Wings and not the Beatles, because that was weirder, and Erasure and stuff like that. I credit Paul McCartney with making weird music fine, because have you ever heard the song Admiral Halsey / I've got like 3 names, it's on one of his albums, but there's a bit that goes, Admiral Halsey notified me he hadn't had a bath so he couldn't go to sea. I had another look and I had a cup of tea and a butter pie. And it's like, this man's easily a millionaire. Why is he writing this? But it's really fun. And as a kid, I was like, that's great. I want to listen to that again. And as an adult, I was like, that was really interesting for being so odd.
Yeah.
And I really vibe with that.
So there's a sort of affinity for oddness.
Yes,
and weird.
The weird is cool.
Yeah.
Because I've always been weird. I can't escape that. So I might as well embrace it. Yeah. Do you not think the same? As I don't know. You certainly remember stranger things than you do the really impressive stuff more so.
Yeah, the things that aren't what you're experiencing every day are the
Yeah.
things that stand out. And like, when it comes to music, like if you're listening to, think about like the mid-noughties and indie landfill, like almost every band wanted to sound like the Arctic Monkeys.
Yeah.
And the ones that you remember are the ones that had something different about them. Like Fratelli's, like as much as like everything after Costello Music drops off, Costello Music is full of bangers because it's a weird vibe to an extent. Like it's still obviously like, generally guitar, bass, drums and keys and stuff like that, but like there was a uniqueness to it almost. And once they stopped being as unique as they were on the first album, it dropped off. But like, they're the ones you remember.
Exactly. There's a little known singer by the name of Lemmy Kilmister in a little known band called Motorhead who once said no one wants to see the boy next door, they want to see an alien from outer space.
Yeah.
And I really like that as an idea, because again, you remember it. I mean, again, if someone's really impressive on their instrument, you're going to remember it. But if someone's really bad and really like odd, you're going to remember that just as much. So I want to put more of my equity into embracing the strange, I think.
Embracing the strange, absolutely love that. The Will Yates Experience is no stranger to covers. There's been a few in the repertoire.
I have.
Last time I saw you, there's an ABBA song.
Lay All Your Love on Me.
That one. What's your view on like covers? What makes the perfect cover? Is there a perfect cover out there?
I don't know. There's many reasons as to why you want to do a cover. It could be for the audience's enjoyment. It could be for our enjoyment. For us, it's a bit of both, I like to think, because I like playing them. But it's also an opportunity to sort of leave your stamp on a song. And some of the covers we've done do that, and some of them don't. And both are fine, I think. The reason that we choose covers is to make people dance. I think first and foremost is just to let people have a good time. I think it is maybe, I don't know if it's important or not, because you do see with like a lot of bands, they'll have the one or two for those who don't know their music, so they can at least, I know this song, I'm going to enjoy it now. It gives them a chance to enjoy themselves. I don't know, I just know that we do them, I guess.
Yeah, fair enough.
Do you have a favourite cover yourself of like a band that's done? Is there a song that you think is better than the original?
I do think like there are quite a few out there. I'm gonna,
Okay.
Freak, by Rubes, originally by Zand. No, I can't be that narcissistic.
Oh, you can. We're talking about me for the past. Like, I'm happily gonna plug you if you want.
There are a few, but I can't think of any right now, which is really bad.
You're gonna as soon as that we finish recording, you'll be like, I've got 5 here.
Just overdub them in as opposed to this. It's a Japanese cover of "I'm Not Okay" by My Chemical Romance.
Ooh.
So like, My Chemical Romance are a hard band to cover because iconic. Like, most people only really view those songs as
As
capable
performed
of being
by-
performed by My Chemical
Yeah.
Romance. So like, in order to sort of justify a My Chemical Romance cover, generally for me, like, it has to be different enough, and a song by an American band in Japanese, like, of like I'm Not Okay, like, it actually spawned as someone doing a like anime intro of Dear Maria Count Me In by All Time Low, which is a very like anime-esque song. And then they did like an EP of covers in Japanese, and it's a band called Sunrise Skater Kids, which is actually a like Jared Alonji like pop punk YouTube like project, but like it's just got such a really cool vibe and works. I think that's the important thing. Like, it should sound like it could maybe have been its own song.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's what. Yeah, I'll put that as my cover.
That's a good, yeah, I like that. It's a good answer.
Yeah.
You do highlight a good point, though, is there are some covers that I don't think anyone should touch. I think, unless you're bringing something to the game, like, for the longest time, until I heard the Arcane Roots cover, I didn't think Smells Like Teen Spirit should be touched at all, because that song is so what it is. Robert Glasper also did an amazing version, but there's so many others I've heard that I'm just like, oh, that's just not as good. A lot of Queen songs, I feel like we get so much Queen on the radio these days that the last thing I want to hear at a gig is more Queen. Queen are a great band, but they must be making some nice radio play money. But I don't want to hear someone else do a cover of Bohemian Rhapsody, because that song is so obviously Bohemian Rhapsody. It's very hard to shake off that former cloak, as it were.
Yeah.
So I think there are some songs out there that maybe it would be a real challenge. Was that your tooth?
That was my
Oh
tooth.
my gosh.
I wonder if the microphone picked that.
I think maybe. Can we just... Oh, there's a little bit of a sound wave. Gosh, did that sound as painful... Was that as painful as it sounded?
Yes.
I'm so sorry. Are we keeping this in?
Yeah, sure. Why not?
But yeah, there are some songs that will make you bash your cup into your teeth if you're not careful, and I reckon it's a big danger. But luckily we haven't chosen any of them. I really want to do a cover of Hollaback Girl, because I think that'd be very funny.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
A bit of Gwen Stefani.
A bit of Gwen Stefani, that is my shit.
Yeah.
But it's just, I think we probably should do some more originals first.
Yeah.
I don't know. Again, I'm 1/5 of the band, so...
It's got your name on it, but it's not just you.
Oh, right. The name came about. I don't know how the name came about. It wasn't my suggestion, I don't think. I don't remember. But we had a group chat while we were putting the band together, because I like the Jimi Hendrix Experience. It's a great band. Obviously, he's got a legacy of music, and so the Will Yates Experience was a fun joke at that. And then the group chat kind of kept going until we organised a few dates to play. And then by that time, we just sort of, everyone was cool with calling it that. And we haven't come up with a different name, and that's where we're at. So I do need to make a point of saying that as much as it has like my name on, there's 5 people in the band that make up the band to what it is, because it would not be the same without Johnny, Sam, Ben, and Em.
Yeah, absolutely. And like, you get that a lot with a lot of bands where it's like so and so and the things where it's like someone very visibly like the front man, and it's like, oh yeah, it's my band, it's everything like that. But then you get a lot of ones where it's like, no, without these other people, I'm nothing.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Really, we should just be the thing, because it's like, oh yeah, I'm just here because SEO, we differentiate from another band.
Yeah, no, if it wasn't for those 4, these songs would still be at the laptop.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe that's where I'm going wrong. But no, we'll move on to my quick fire round, which I
okay.
brought in as a good way of like wrapping things up. It's
Sure.
like, feel free to add context, feel free to not add context.
Sure, yeah.
So let's start off. Go-to comfort food.
Go-to comfort food. As I was telling you in the kitchen, as you were making me a very bitter coffee, I can't taste very well, so I need something that is strong tasting. I guess a lot of sweets. Just like a lot. Enough to where you're like, oh, that's too many. Just a bit too many. That's my comfort.
I buy Skittles by the kilogram bag.
That's a great shout. I used to do a thing. Me and my friend in Manchester, I'd make a thing called Yates Mix, which is where you buy a tub of Haribo, like the big party tubs, get like a packet of Skittles and a packet of Fruit Passes and just chuck them all in to shake them up. And that's that's an unhealthy, terrible time, but it's also really fun the night before when you're like, this is great. The next day you're like, why is my mouth furry? Why does everything taste so bland?
The second Haribo actually get their shit together and make a vegan star mix, like, I can jump on that.
Yeah.
But currently that's just a memory. Because Skittles vegan, Fruit
Yep.
Pastel's vegan, Haribo.
Nothing. When I was 16 and I was going on my own to college, I remember thinking, hey, I'm like an adult now. I'm independent. I can do whatever the heck I want. So I bought a whole pack of Haribo and ate it in like 10 minutes on a hot bus going from Preston that was an hour long. And I remember feeling so ill after doing that, but I remember being like, yeah, I was the arbiter of that. I was the reason that's a moment of independence for me, just making myself sick. And then and nothing changed since.
Yeah. MIDI instruments or real instruments?
Oh, I love real instruments, but MIDI is so much more practical. I have a Fender Rhodes at home, which I saved for years to afford, and they're only getting more expensive, so I was lucky to get one when I could. And I absolutely adore it. I love the way it sounds, I love the way it feels. If it had a smell, I'm sure I'd love the way it smells. And so I love writing instruments on that, but for live, I love carrying a very light MIDI keyboard that has more keys and does more functionality and that I'm not as precious over. I think it's whatever works. I am more of a mojo kind of guy than practicality, so I will absolutely take the most impractical instrument so long as it meant that I could write a song with it. It's like, guitars. Yeah. Every guitar, I'm going to annoy a lot of people by saying this, most guitars do the same thing.
Yeah.
However, your attitude towards the guitar doesn't make you play the same thing. So if I gave you like a BC Rich guitar or this, I can't see what the make is,
Ibanez.
but this Ibanez acoustic in the corner, you're going to play something very different.
Yeah.
You're not going to, it's very rare that you'll play jazz on a BC Rich and very rare that you'll play like shreddy stuff on an acoustic. So I think the way that you have, or what you have, will change what you make. Yeah. It's almost like a restriction, because restrictions are great for making music, because you can start with absolutely everything, and then you think, right, I don't know what to do, there's too many options. Where if you're like, well, we've only got 4 tracks, you're like, okay, well, I probably should like make that quick. And yeah, I think for me personally, the real deal is very, very fun. But for when it comes down to it, MIDI is so good.
Yeah. And like just being able to write stuff electronically, like...
Oh my days. You ever tried writing on tape?
No.
It's awful. It's great, but it's bloody awful. I remember I tried using a 4-track recorder, which is why I mentioned 4 tracks before. And you get a take wrong. Okay, we'll rewind. It's real time. That's 2 minutes. You have to wait because it's a slow tape machine. It's not a very good one. We'll start recording again. Oh, I didn't arm that track. We'll have to start again. Oh, I thought the first half of this was quite good, but maybe, can we punch in? Oh, it'll be very difficult to punch in, but we can just punch in. Just make sure that this is the take. Oh, it's a fun challenge, but heck, it's so much more challenging than just being like, done, Yeah.
Just setting it on a loop on Logic.
Yeah, until doing
record
50 takes until you get it right. And you're like, okay, cool, we've done it right now, as opposed to learning it until you get it, so you can't get it wrong. But it's just 2 different ways of playing, really. I think it is fun to swap it up every now and again, though. I really want to write some more songs on tape, actually. They probably won't be for this band, but it'll just be a fun challenge again.
Just a fun challenge.
Yeah.
E-flat minor or D-sharp major?
Oh, E-flat minor.
A classic.
Yeah.
Yeah. Pro Tools or Logic?
Logic, for me. I think Pro Tools and Logic are, again, they basically do the same. Depending on what you're using it for. I think Pro Tools has been around for longer, hasn't it? Which is why it's more prevalent in the famous studios. But I don't really think it matters so long as you're doing something with it.
Yeah, absolutely. Take FL Studios if it works for you.
My first songs I wrote on Audacity, and I'm proud to say that.
I used to record some of my YouTube covers in like the 2006, 2007 days, using the Windows audio recorder and a SingStar mic.
Hell
that's all I had.
And that's all you need, really.
And a 5-string classical guitar with acoustic strings.
That's the stuff.
It sounded terrible.
Oh, but it's not about how it sounds, though.
It's the feeling.
It's the feeling.
Yeah.
And you can work your way up, but for the most part, yeah, so long as you get there.
Yeah, definitely. Streaming or physical media?
I prefer physical media, but streaming's so much easier, isn't it? And also it's so much easier on my wallet because you don't have to pay anything for music these days. But I really cherish the physical media I do have with what little space I've got left for it. I'll tell you one thing though, it's really easier to get signed media these days because there's so much streaming out there. Some of my favourite bands, I've just, without even putting in any more effort than buying an actual CD, I've been able to, for the same price, get the same CD but signed, which is great. It's a shame that there's a lot more issues at play that make that the way that it is, but it's really nice in the short term for me to be able to say, oh, I've got Thundercat's signature. Yeah, what about you? What do you feel about?
I mean, like, there are, I say hundreds, there's loads of CDs in this room. I've got vinyl upstairs and like a shelf of DVDs and Blu-rays. Like,
oh, I'll tell you what, if you drive physical media, because if you have an older car like me, do you remember my first car, that green car I had? It was a right piece of work, and it only had a cassette player. And that year and a bit that I had that car, I just got a cassette collection, and it was fantastic. Because then it would be a case of I'd go to any charity shop and be like, right, do they have cassettes in the bottom next to the women's shoes? They do. They've got two. They've got Shalimar. They've got Nightbirds. Let's go for. I'll buy both of them.
Yeah.
Shack Attack.
And it's 25p or
exactly.
something like
It's £1 for both of them. Yeah, and I wouldn't have discovered some just weird bands had it not been for that.
There's also something like to get music journalism-y. There's something authentic, I feel, about like listening to a cassette or listening to a CD or a vinyl. You know, like just the physical media in general for like music. It feels like there's an experience there almost. Like one of our friends, Josh Fielden, like he was telling me about the first time he listened to it. I think it was a Tame Impala record, and he was listening to it on a vinyl player that like had a broken.
Oh, is it him? I've heard this story.
Yeah, and it's like, what's going on with this? And it's like they
Listen to the entire album with a phaser on because there was something wrong with the tracking, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. That's. I wish I could have experienced how he heard that album for the first time, which was the wrong way.
Yeah. But like you don't get you can't listen to a streaming song.
You can't
in
incorrectly
the wrong way.
stream, can you?
Yeah, you can illicitly stream, but you can't incorrectly stream.
Yeah, you can't just like play it. Well, it's a lot harder, isn't it? The experience is the main part. I think that having physical media certainly adds to the experience. You probably still can. I've certainly had times where I've listened to a streamed album from start to finish, and that is a very good experience, and that feels authentic to me. But I definitely think it's a lot easier when you've got like a centerfold you can pull out and posters and read through like liner notes and things like that. Yeah. Not to say that you can't, just that it does seem to be a lot easier when you've got something to hold on to.
On a similar vibe, last of the quickfire round, song on repeat.
No, never.
Never?
Never. I have a hard time listening to the same song again unless it really, really strikes me. I'm trying to think of the last song I heard on repeat. I remember the Pink Floyd's Dark Side of the Moon is the only, maybe one of 3 albums, I can't remember the other 2, that I listened to and thought, I'm going to listen to that again. Yeah. Because I was 16 and that was a very deep album at the time. But no, I don't know. I'll listen to a song the next day, but I never ever use that function on Spotify where it's like, play this again forever. Because that sounds like hell to me.
Just helping an artist do a bit of stream farming.
Yeah, absolutely. If I put it on really low, but I won't be listening. I think listen to it once and then repetition is the death of art sometimes.
Yeah. Well, in that case, then, rather than a song on repeat, give people listening a song to listen to.
Oh, right. Sorry. I thought you were asking how many songs I have. Right, okay. I understand you now. Listen to that one Paul McCartney song that I'm going to find out the name of before that mentions butter pies. And if you are from Lancashire, get yourself a butter pie because they don't have them in Yorkshire. The song's called Uncle Albert / Admiral Halsey by Paul and Linda McCartney off the Ram album. That is a song which is very quirky, and I think if more songs were like that, it'd be a wilder place to live. Do you ever think about like how we have so many music charts these days, whereas say 50 years ago you had one, and so in the same vein you'd have like The Who and AC/DC and then the Birdie song, and that was just a timeline that existed. And so you had so much more variety because there was only one metric, which is how many sales have you got. And I think it's a shame that we don't have people forced to listen to the Stranger Things anymore. Maybe not just the Stranger Things, but variety in general. Gosh, I love variety. It's great.
Variety is great, and it's kind of a bit like what I was saying earlier about like how, you know, your entire recommendations are only ever based around what you're listening to. Sometimes you just got to be a bit out there.
Absolutely.
Me and a friend are doing this thing where each week we recommend the other an album.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter if they've listened to it before. The whole point is to just share musical experiences. And the amount of stuff that like I've listened to that I would probably never put on like without some form of, you know, recommendation.
Yeah.
It's been really cool.
Yeah.
Like the 100 Gex, that was one of them. Like this week's one, I've got some Sufjan Stevens.
Oh, yeah.
Which I've been aware of Sufjan Stevens as an artist for a long time. And I think I've listened to like 1 or 2 songs, but like I've never had something that like grips me. But because we've got this recommendation thing going on, it's like listen to Sufjan Stevens. It's like, all right, cool. I will listen to Sufjan Stevens this week. It's a very long album. It's like Illinois.
Yes.
So I've not got around to it yet, but there's still time this week.
Is Sufjan the one that brought out an album like last year? Yeah, they brought an album out in 2023 called Javelin, and they had a song called Will Anybody Ever Love Me? And that was pretty heartfelt and beautiful. Shout out Radio 6 for playing that quite a bit on rotation, but not on repeat, which I respect, you know.
Shout out to Radio 6, they really need it.
Yeah, I hope they get the viewers back, you know. It's always nice to see the underdog
Yeah,
win.
absolutely. So on that note then, like, is there anything you want to plug? Like, where can people find the Will Yates Experience?
We have an Instagram, which is always doing something. We are the Will Yates Experience. That's the.will.yates.experience on Instagram. And you'll be able to find us on Facebook as well. And we have a Spotify and a YouTube channel, like you said, which will have a music video on. And that'll have all you need to know about gigs and upcoming things. We've got something in November time that's going to be very ooky spooky and fun. But I am not organising as much as that as I should be saying, if that makes sense. That doesn't make sense. I don't know as much as I'm going to say, so I'm going to stop saying.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, anyone who's listened, if you've enjoyed this, you know, definitely go and give them a follow and keep an eye out for some shows, listen to the music, all that stuff. It's been a pleasure having you on. Like, as I say, I've had you on every episode technically. But like, it's been good to finally get you on in person.
Yeah,
and
it's
present
been
and
good
stuff.
to have a reason to come on as well.
Absolutely. And cue Will Yates.
You're listening to Fresh from the Scene with Ruby Price.